Hi, how's your dog doing? Linus comes out for the first time in a long time to have a dinner with his family. Thinking he's someone like Ben Shapiro or Noam Chomsky, he immediately starts arguing with his family about politics, ruining the occasion for everyone. Linus is a terrible speaker. Marcus Aurelius instead is having a deep philosophical discussion with his friends. They're all gathered around the table, hearing each other's perspectives. After dinner, Marcus Aurelius and his friends all leave with a better perspective and greater knowledge on themselves, their friends, and the world. I can admit that I used to be the type of person to kind of accidentally start arguments. Now, in my defense, I never saw them as arguments, and I always thought that we were having a civil discussion. That doesn't mean that we were. Maybe this way of communicating with other people didn't come across well, or maybe I said something that made them a little more riled up. I don't know. But if this is something that happened with a lot of these discussions that I had, clearly the problem was me and not the other person. So eventually I worked on it, and I'd say I'm a lot better now. Am I perfect? No. Now I'm better at actually having a true civil discussion with other people, rather than me thinking we're having a nice civil discussion and them thinking that I'm attacking them or something along those lines. And again, that's my fault, not theirs. They're not to blame for feeling offended. That's my fault for saying something that might be interpreted that way. And everything here still applies, even if you're doing something like talking on a YouTube comment section. So don't just think this applies to talking in real life. So one thing you do right now is to grab some pen and paper. Please, pen and paper. You can do it on your laptop, but that will not be as effective. But grab some pen and paper. Grab a pen and some paper, and be prepared to take notes, because you will make less progress if you don't. So from what I know about having discussions and conversing with other people, I think there are three big ideas, three giant principles that you need to keep in mind, going from most important to least important. The first thing is to show respect for the other person and their beliefs. So for example, that might come about as not directly saying that they're wrong, because that's essentially disrespecting their beliefs, because people are going to have these beliefs something very close to them. So try to show some respect. It'll give them the feeling that you truly are just trying to talk with them, and you're just trying to discuss and find the truth rather than just trying to bash them. Next is to not appear hostile or offensive or even defensive. Similarly to the last one, these could maybe be put together, but I still consider them separate. If you're coming off as very hostile, you're yelling, you're saying, "You're wrong, this is all terrible, this is a stupid idea," something like that. If you're coming across as this very hostile type of person, they're going to become defensive. They're going to see you as this aggressive person, and they're going to like you less for it. Even if you don't care about what they think about you, you're going to have a worse discussion, and you probably won't get anywhere. And the third thing to know is to make your point look as good as possible. That one's pretty obvious, but it's something that people kind of forget to do. And again, these things all connect. If you respect their beliefs and you make your beliefs look really good, they'll be more likely to actually transition over and see it as an insight that they've had, rather than you trying to shove your ideas, or even if it's a fact, down their throats. And make sure to remember this: the perfect result is that your discussion never becomes an argument and remains civil the entire time. Whoever you're talking to comes to your point of view instead of having it shoved down their throat, and they come out of the discussion seeing you as a respectable person and a good conversationalist. That should be the goal for every discussion that you have where you or someone else have different ideas and you're talking about them. And something someone might say is like, "Oh, well, what if I'm right? What if this is so obviously the truth and I need to show this to them?" It doesn't matter. That's not going to help. You could be telling them that the sky is blue. And if you don't do those three things, if you don't keep those principles in mind, you will not convince them that the sky is blue. It's as simple as that. Yeah, you might be right. Maybe you are right. Maybe it's just a cold hard fact. They will not be convinced unless you actually respect these principles. Because people are not always rational, and that includes you. That includes me. That includes everyone. We are not perfectly rational beings. Are most of us working to get there? Absolutely. I know I'm working to get there. But we are not not there. We will never be perfectly rational beings. So we have to respect that when we're talking to people. No matter how rational our arguments are, how rational we think we are, how correct they are, or how even stupid you might think the other person is. But we'll get to that in a second. This next thing you can do might seem a little silly, but it will work, because I do it myself. I know it works for me. Maybe it'll be different for you. I don't know how your mind works, but I know it works for me. When you watch this video, have like a have like a conversation in your head with somebody and try to actually apply these principles. That is a good way to practice, because the only other way to really do this, like to purposely practice it, is to go around trying to start discussions, which that's good, but sometimes people just don't want to and try to make it arise naturally. So if there's not an opportunity that's arising, just do it to yourself. Just talk to yourself. Act as though you're talking to yourself. Have a specific person in mind that you're talking to and you're discussing with. That will help to strengthen your abilities. We've talked about the 3 guiding principles for all this, so what are like the actual steps that you can do, and the actual specific things that you can do in regards to these principles? The first thing, which will show respect for them and their beliefs, is to not criticize them or their beliefs. Do not go out with ad hominem attacks. Don't insult them. Don't say that they're wrong. Now you might say, how am I supposed to show that they're wrong then? Don't directly say you're wrong, just say that you see it differently. Don't put the emphasis on how wrong you think they are. Put the emphasis just on how you think differently. Not that you are right, not that they are wrong, not any other way. Just show that there is a difference, a neutral one. Just say, I think differently, and continue from there. Don't call their ideas stupid, because again, that's going to make them defensive. The next thing, and this is probably one of the most important things you will ever hear in your entire life, even though you've probably heard it before, listen to them more than you talk. Most people see listening as just waiting for your turn to talk and not speaking when other people are speaking. That is not listening. Most people need to improve their listening skills. You need to improve your listening skills. I need to improve my listening skills. If you want people to think that you're great at having conversations, try to listen as much as possible and talk as little as possible, except for when it's relevant. Because most of the time, people don't want you to be responding with a bunch of answers. They just want someone to sit there and listen. Now, of course, you're going to have to talk in a discussion, but always try to listen when you can. When they start going on rants about something, don't interrupt them and start stopping them. Just listen. This is the best thing to make people actually feel like that you care, and don't fake it. Like, actually listen to what they're saying. If you take genuine interest in what they're saying, they'll feel respected. You're showing them respect, and you're showing that you are the type of person who is actually going to listen, not just push their ideas to the side and cast them off as just stupid or something. You're actually taking an interest in them, even if you know that they're wrong. Just listen. This next thing is probably the most difficult for me, but it is trying to understand where they're coming from. Instead of just sitting there and thinking about how right you are and how they're so wrong and about how they could even come up with this, just sit there and actually think about how they got this idea, where it came from. Think about how maybe certain circumstances in their life might have led them to think that this idea is correct. It's really that simple. Like, I know it's simple, but it's not easy. It's going to take a lot of practice to actually stop villainizing people in this way. Like, oh, they're just a bad person, that's why they think this. No. They just have a different life experience. They have a different system of thought. That's it. Just try to look at things from their point of view. Don't look at it from some stupid point of view where you're acting as though they are complete idiots. Don't do that. That is unnecessary, and it's not a good way to look at other people, because most people do not see themselves as these villainous things. Look at it the way you would look at things. How do you justify this belief that you hold? Look at things the way that you would look at things. How would you justify this belief that you hold? And now do that, but for the other person. Don't just think, oh, they think this because they're evil people and they're narcissists or whatever. Just look at it from their perspective and why they generally think this. This way you can show some respect for their beliefs and you can gain a better understanding. And this also will really help you to essentially frame your ideas in a way that'll be more appealing to them. The fourth thing you can do is to admit when you're wrong immediately and be sincere with it. If you make a mistake, if you've done something wrong, if you made a similar mistake in the past, admit it as soon as possible. Well, you might be thinking, well, why would I do that? That's going to make me seem weaker. That's going to make me seem dumber. It won't. That shows that you are the type of person who can admit to faults. So that way, even if you're looking at it from the more selfish perspective, it makes you look like you really believe in what you're talking about and you know what you're talking about, because otherwise you would admit if you're wrong. And it's going to involve kind of setting your pride aside, putting your ego away. I don't want to say if they've won, but if they've shown that their idea is more correct or you were just wrong about a fact that was supporting your argument, just admit it and let it go. Just let it go. There is no point in holding on to one idea supporting your argument or the whole discussion. It's pointless to do that because you're losing out on a lot more. Hold on to what's more important. If it's a point in your argument, the whole discussion is more important than just this one thing. Your argument is more important than that. Don't focus on that one thing. Focus on your argument as a whole. If you were proven objectively wrong in the discussion, that's okay. There will be other ones. It's not a competition. You're doing this to gain knowledge. So if you're wrong, admit it. The goal of a discussion is not to win. It's not about winning and losing and being right or being wrong. It's just about gaining the truth. And that is the mindset that you want to get into, that you are just looking for the truth. Always ask if someone thinks that, if they think differently, or if they think that you're wrong, because what you should be after is the truth, not the feeling that you're right. And this was also going to be really hard to do, because I thought I was that person who was completely okay with that until I noticed specific situations, maybe with a specific person or specific topics, where I wouldn't admit that I was wrong. And there's me doing that. I just admitted that I have been wrong I've not implemented this principle sometimes. So again, even if you're going through this perspective of how does this help me, it again makes you look more respectable, makes you look like the type of person who truly is just after the truth. And the last thing, and probably one of the most important things that I've ever talked about in this video at least, is try to get them to agree with you as much as possible. You've probably heard of the Socratic method. Essentially a method where Socrates would ask a question and someone would respond, and then he'd find exceptions and whatnot. He'd just kind of question them until they got to the final answer. How does that really work? Well, it would work because essentially the person would be agreeing with what Socrates was saying, following him along until they got to the true answer. They could start with a completely different belief at the beginning than at the end, because they agreed to all the things leading up to the end. And especially try to do this at the beginning. Try to get them to agree with you as much as possible. If you can get them agreeing with certain points at the beginning of the discussion, they'll be more likely to agree with you later on. Because essentially, if you say no to something, you are a lot more likely to want to stick to that and not back out than if you said yes to something. You will observe this all the time in your life. When someone says no to something or they disagree, they are way less likely to let it go than if they said yes and they're going to admit that they were wrong about agreeing with it. That's just a fact. People will be way less likely to admit, yeah, I shouldn't have said no, I should have said yes, than they are to say, I shouldn't have said yes, I should have said no. Try to get them to agree with you as much as possible, because then they'll be more likely, they'll be seeing themselves as on your side, agreeing with you, and then they'll hopefully arrive at your conclusion. So I know a lot of you might be thinking, why am I even making this video? Well, I'm making it because I think that it's an important part of being a polymath and also being a polyglot. I think for being a polymath, it's important that you share your ideas, because if the whole point is to make connections between things and form a greater perspective, you're going to want to share that perspective with other people. And of course, with languages, obviously, you're going to have discussions with people. You're going to need to understand how to discuss well and just in general, and then apply that to different languages. So that's why I made this video. I thought it'd be helpful, so hopefully it was. If you really like what I'm doing here and you think you might need some help with some one-on-one things, I offer coaching calls, so you can sign up for those. I think it's very helpful. I've already helped before. I've been told that it's very useful. I've been very helpful. So the whole point is that I'm trying to get you to a better place. That's the whole point of this channel. So I think it's just a more personalized option for those who really think that they need it. Like, you know, you just want that one-on-one help. You think that your situation is personalized, so you just need to get up somewhere yourself rather than just the general advice I provide here. And if you're interested in Tokipona, I know I haven't talked about it in this video, but I do have 25 free words and phrases in the description, so you can get started with your Tokipona journey. That's all I really have for this video, so I guess tell your dog I said hi.